Welcome back, sailors. This is your captain speaking. Welcome to another episode of Bruise News. We just got finished with UFC on Espn 2. It was a pretty good card. There was 9 total finishes from the top to the bottom of the card. It's the biggest, or it's the most in 2019 so far, which is pretty huge. We're about halfway, May's 5th month, so next month is the halfway point, so that's a pretty good margin for a card to have. Like 9 finishes out of, I think, 12 fights in total is pretty good. I don't think you're going to get much higher than that, honestly, and it's not really something that you can, bet on or anything like that, so it's just a cool little fact there, something to give you for that. Deontay Wilder had his boxing match tonight, too, and he got a first-round knockout against a nobody, because that's how boxing is. Boxing is a bunch of nobodies that fight the top guy, and then the top guy just destroys them all until, 1 or 2 guys come along that end up being really good and end up giving the champ some trouble, or they end up having their way. It just doesn't seem like boxing has that type of depth that UFC has. We really want to see the Wilder versus Fury rematch. Speaking of which, doesn't Fury kind of look like a caveman? He's very cavemanish, like Cro-Magnon. He's got that big forehead and that odd-shaped body. Like, ooh, me make fire hit you hard with club on head. Like when Deontay Wilder hit him in that last round, was it the last round or the second last round? I forget which round it was. It was one of those two. He knocked the soul directly out of Fury's body. And Fury was just like, did you just hit me, bro? And he just was out, and I thought the fight was over, and then he just stood up and got up, and he's like, yo, I'm cool. Let's go get a drink right after the fight. And he didn't really look like it was too much going on. There wasn't a lot of punches in that fight, but Fury definitely, in my opinion, won. But Deontay kind of stays true to how he is. He's a big-time power puncher. A lot of people compare him to Tyson. Me, not personally. Fury's a lot more like people who've beaten Tyson. He's a big, long fighter with lots of KO power, and he tends to not get in short exchanges. He gets in long-range exchanges. So not like Tyson, where Tyson likes to move in and out of the pocket with those shoulders to block his head, and he throws those big punches. A lot of the left hooks hitting people to the body to set up the uppercut or the right hand. So, not really too similar in my opinion, but Deontay Wilder is still really good. He's still got lots of knockout power. He's young. There's a lot of fights that people want to see. I really want to see Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, because I think Anthony Joshua is going to end up taking the heavyweight title, and I don't think he's going to lose it anytime soon, because the kid's phenomenal. Jourdain, who is he's a Canadian kid from Montreal. He made his UFC debut tonight. A lot of people were hyped up about it because he was a fill-in against Green, and Green is an all-right fighter, but he's not going to be a contender anytime soon, I don't think. He's young, but he's good. He's a good wrestler. He's from UFC. I think that's where he got a couple good fights in. Anyways, Green took it to Jourdain. Jourdain is primarily a flashy striker. He throws a lot of jump kicks and flying knees and spin kicks, or spinning back fists and stuff like that. So he's a flashy fighter with some really good striking, because he comes out of that TriStar gym, but he doesn't really have any ground game, and that was what happened in the fight. He really got dominated on the ground, and that was one of the only fights that ended up actually going to decision, which he lost. He's a tough kid. Most Canadians are, to be honest. Canadians tend to be really tough. You got Sam Stowe, you got George St. Pierre, you got, this kid. There's lots of other Canadians that I could mention, but we all know. And they all seem to be very, very tough. We had the RDA versus Lee fight as the main event for the ESPN card. Nobody else really on the card was too mentionable. A lot of people complained that the card wasn't really stacked, but I mean, it was a free card, and you can't really get offended by that. The people you don't know have to fight too. And this was one of those cards, and it really builds up the roster and the ranking systems, and it puts people where they need to be, and these types of cards are very important. Now, going into this fight, I didn't get to make a prediction video because life sometimes, but I didn't end up making a prediction video because there was really only one fight that I thought everybody who watches this would be interested in, and that was Kevin Lee versus RDA. So I figured I'm just not going to make the prediction because I figured I knew what would happen, and exactly what I thought would happen did happen. Kevin Lee is a bad, like, he's one of those guys that you just cannot wait to watch him get his mouth shut. Like, when he loses like in bad fashion. He doesn't like shaking hands, and he talks all this shit that he shouldn't be talking, and he's so cocky and condescending. Like, the dude is not that complete of a fighter. Like, after he fought Edson Barboza, okay? So Edson Barboza and him had a pretty good fight, but Kevin Lee relies all on his wrestling, which he's not even that good at either, okay? So he relies all on his wrestling to set up some jiu-jitsu and sub people, which, again, he's not very even good at. And they go through the fight, and it's pretty much while they're standing, Barboza is picking them apart. And when they're on the ground, Barboza is getting picked apart. Kevin Lee's working them. And at the end of the fight, after Kevin Lee had not even 5 minutes earlier gotten rocked by a spin kick, okay, a spin kick, spinning heel right to the face, boom, you probably saw it on a highlight reel. Kevin Lee's on chicken legs, wobbling all over the place. After that, he had the audacity to say that he was one of the best strikers in the lightweight division. Yeah, right. Dude, you are not good at striking. You're barely good on the ground. And everything about all of this and the ranking system where you sit, you've lost to every top 5 fighter that you ever go up against. You lost to Ferguson, you lost to Iaquinta, you barely beat Barboza. You couldn't even tango with him standing up. And then you move up to welterweight, where I thought you would maybe do a little bit better because he seemed to have bad weight cuts, and he seemed big, and he ended up having that staph infection before. So I figured that maybe at welterweight, where he's not cutting as much weight down, that he would do a little bit better. No, he comes out, he's cocky. Again, he's talking shit to RDA's corner, you know, like just being a bad person. Like, dude, you guys are competing. Like, like, what's the point of animosity if nobody's talking shit? Like, you're just starting stuff, and now you make yourself look bad because you get beat. Anyways, the fight goes on. Kevin Lee starts off all right, but he gets rocked in the first round. He gets rocked by a head kick. Kind of does that chicken dance again. I don't know what the dealio is, why that keeps happening with him, but whatever, okay? So the second round comes again. Kevin Lee, again, he comes out super aggressive. It doesn't work out for him because his striking isn't there. So you can't be super aggressive with bad striking. It just doesn't make any sense. So RDA, you know, weathers the storm. He starts picking them apart. The distance between the points and what's happening get further and further apart. At the third round, Kevin Lee's pretty much quit the fight. His endurance is in there. He's looking gassed. He's shooting for bad takedowns. Fourth round comes around. RDA takes him down after a weird scramble, puts him in an arm triangle. Kevin Lee basically gives the arm triangle to him, and he subs. He taps out. And in the fourth round, too, RDA landed this leg kick that dropped Kevin Lee. I don't know where I'm doing the dances, too. He dropped him. He put him down to his knee with a leg kick, and then Kevin Lee was like, no, that didn't hurt. Like, dude, you just got your leg kicked out from under you. Like, who cares if it didn't hurt? Like, it was a nice leg kick. Accept it. Accept the fact that you fucked up. Anyways, RDA subbed him. It was a great fight. RDA's still looking good. He's got 40 pro fights to him. He's 35 years old. He's still looking really good, and welterweight might be a better position for him, or not position. Welterweight might be a better class for him, so he doesn't put so much pressure on the weight cuts, but he definitely still has it in him. But I will say this, that RDA from tonight versus RDA even 2 years ago, or even a year ago, when he fought Robbie Lawler, they're two completely different fighters, and you can see RDA slowing down, and you can see him not being able to do what he wants to do. His head's not moving as fast as it usually does. His hands aren't moving as fast as they usually are. So it's something he has to look at. Maybe, you know, maybe it's time to cut the cord and give it up. I still personally think that he has it, but he definitely has to watch himself, because all of those pieces, once you hit that area in a competitive sport like this, you start to kind of lose it, and we don't want to see RDA go on a 4-fight, 5-fight losing streak. To point also, BJ Penn was on the last card, and I forgot to mention this. BJ Penn is on a 7-fight losing streak, which is the record for the UFC for most losses in a row. BJ Penn holds it. Now, when I was a kid and I just started watching UFC, BJ Penn was a god. He was beating everybody. He would absolutely smash everybody. Like, nobody touched BJ Penn. He was so good. The only person who ever beat him really was Matt Hughes, and that was when BJ was very, very young. And then it was George St. Pierre. And you can't... What? George St. Pierre is one of the best guys to ever fight. So you can't take that away from him. But now that BJ's still fighting and they're still allowing him to fight... So BJ went on his own website, because you can go to bjpenn.com, and they actually do like some stats and some spoilers and some talking about, you know, some rumbles in the jungle about what's going on with the UFC. And he spoke to his website, and he had said that his body is still reacting to fighting the way that he wants it to. And it's just about getting his confidence back, which is the main piece of why he ended up returning in the first place. He felt like he didn't really have a place outside of the UFC, and not meaning like in another organization. He meant that like in the world, he didn't really feel like he had a place. Like his gym, he didn't feel like training anybody because it wasn't giving him that passion that he loved. He really still wants to compete. So you have to kind of give it to BJ for that. If he wants to compete and his body's still doing what he wants it to do, you got to give the guy some credit. And the people that he's lost to aren't really that, it's not really that crazy that he lost to these people. Like the fight before this one, he lost to a crazy leg lock. This last fight, he lost to Clay Guida, and Clay Guida is a pretty decent fighter. You know, he's pretty good everywhere. So like, I mean, I don't think that you can take it away that BJ isn't able to compete at this level. He still is competing, and he's not getting devastated and not getting knocked out, and he's not getting finished as badly as some of the other people in the division even. So got to give him credit where it's due. But BJ, you know, you got to watch this stuff, man. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please give it a like, give it a share, and give it a subscribe. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all of you. Have a great one.